Now, let's be honest with ourselves. Strahd has to be the ripest person in Barovia, right? He's the oldest undead in that city, the longest to collect as much stank ever. And you might be thinking, but Mike, I'm sure he washes. Oh, really? Vampires are hurt by running water. All right? So every time he washes his hands or takes a shower, acid damage. Now you'd be thinking, Mike, there's also bath. I feel that makes a whole new debate about vampires and washing. But let's move on. So next time you're playing Curse of Strahd with your group and you're sitting at his table, hashing out some deal, don't forget to take a deep breath. Or not. We're just talking above the table. Hey everyone. Welcome to this brand new little production. Hi guys.
Image in my
Please
brain
never
now.
call Strahd ripe again.
He's
I hated that.
I thought vampires can't wash hands.
No, yeah, you brought up an excellent point that I hadn't considered, but wow, that image is in my head now.
Is he not the oldest? He's like the oldest undead creature in that module, right?
Probably.
He rules
Like the books.
the city. Yeah, we have the books.
You don't think like one zombie, even if it's a relatively fresh zombie, would smell worse than a wealthy vampire guy?
Yeah, I feel like
Oh, you know
He
what?
doesn't sweat, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
that,
he doesn't
I
sweat.
feel like it's just
Kind of
be
like the Romans.
Ooh.
Just like olive
Powder.
oil.
Yeah,
Just
it's just gonna be covered in
He's
scented
doing
oils
oil.
all the
Oh
time.
my
Yeah.
god!
Yeah.
Oh, that's true. He's
Make it
probably taken
better.
like perfume baths.
does
Yeah.
not make it better.
I hate that argument of what is considered running water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, when you mentioned it, I thought about like droplets, like running off your skin. I'm like, does
Yeah.
that count as running
Sponge bath?
water?
Is that a
Yeah.
well? That's I was of course like, oh sure, still water in a bath, that's fine. But the moment you step into it, I challenge anyone to step in a bath that doesn't disturb the water and make it swish.
True.
Yeah. Oh, welcome, Game Masters, players, and tabletop RPG enthusiasts to this little new show, Above Table. It is, we're still trying to find our footing, or at least that's how I'm going to phrase the awkwardness that might come in this beginning episode. But I have a quick GM question for everyone, beyond whether or not Strahd is ripe. Is team composition important?
Yeah, I feel like you could make it or break it with a certain type of group.
I feel like as a player, yeah, I think as a player, you're kind of really concerned about team composition. I feel like everyone here at the table has said to me, what is everyone else playing so I can play something that complements?
I
Like,
feel
it
if
matters
you're
to me.
courteous-
Mhm.
Yeah, because there's been some people we've played with, Mike, but I'm just like, I don't know.
Well, and when you say team comp, do you mean like the classes and stuff?
Yeah, like I think this can go off more than just D&D. Like
Yeah.
Nick, we played Blades. If we all played heavy charisma and practically nothing in physical aptitude or study or anything of that sort, it doesn't feel important. Like it almost feels a little weighed now.
Yeah. I think I mean, the answer in 5e is that they say that it's fine. You can do whatever. It should be balanced anyway. Like, you don't need a healer is the official
Yeah.
5e word. And like, yeah, it can work. You just have to play a little different. I think as a DM, like, I think I would pay more attention to it until people were like 5th level or something. Because I think below that, it's really possible to just like, if they don't have a certain ability, you could completely just like stop
soft
them
locked.
with the wrong kind of obstacle, which is like not fun for anybody. So I think you need to be aware of the abilities that are on your team. But I think if you have like 5 players playing different classes, or you have anybody with magic and they start to get around 5th level, it's like they'll figure something out. It'll shake out more or less. But yeah, you do. With the Blades example, it'll skew the game in one particular way, which is fine. Like, you guys aren't assassins in Blades, so there's a different way you would play if that's what everybody was good at, you know. But yeah, you just have to be aware what the team can do and what they can't, because something that might be a small challenge for another team could end up being a big challenge for you guys.
Yeah, kind of like along those same lines. It's important, but at least like in a large degree, I don't know how much it matters. Like in the way that even if we're using like a 5e example of you have a party of bards. You just have a whole like band. Yeah, you just have a whole band walking around with you. And like that's it. That's your party comp. That's and like even if it happened by accident, that's fine, I think. Like it is definitely a different kind of gameplay. But it matters in the sense that like or it's important for the DM to know for encounters, and then it also changes like how even non-combat encounters run, because it, like you said, high charisma. Mm-hmm. Well, we can talk our way out of anything, because that's just kind of what we're meant to do. But then at the same time, I'm like, I would not enjoy, personally, if I played a party of bards and all of us had the same subclass. Like, I like the variety, you know?
And it doesn't, you don't really feel, like, almost you feel, not, like, you don't feel unique.
Yeah.
And that is kind of like a driving factor when it comes to like D&D is feeling like your character is unique to the world and you offer something brand new. I've had discussions like that where like I've almost joined campaigns where I'm like, I want to play wizard, and they're like, we already have 2 others, and I'm like, and then I guess I won't. I'll play something else, because as a player I care about that. If I was a DM and I was DMing a party of barbarians, you know, where their main thing is to rage and not cast spells, then it becomes an interesting discussion of like, oh, I guess we're not in a magic heavy setting, or if I bring you guys like, go ahead and investigate, no one's gonna get it. Like to what like Nick you were talking about. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm fine if I have to switch over like a campaign to that, but I will also feel a bit disappointed. I feel like for the question itself, is it important? People may argue it doesn't matter, but underneath all the layers, I think it does.
I think it's more fun though. Like if you have the same thing, then it's I think you could balance, but like it would be more fun if you had a variety.
That's also a big thing. Is like if you have a wizard, they excel in intelligence, and that way, whenever there is an intelligent moment where it's like, oh, we have to find this correct thing, or we have to figure this problem out, their roles with all their buffs, they get to share, they get to have the spotlight. And if you're a barbarian, it's like, you have to lift this rock before we, you know, are drowning because the water's coming in. You get the barbarian to go rage and then lift it up, and it's like everyone gets like an action movie moment. But I mean, if you were all squishy wizards and you were trapped in a place where you had to lift something, you better hope you have like a big bee's hand or a telekinesis or something.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it. Is like, the question is, does it matter? It's like, well, it can, because it can impact the fun people are having. Because I do think it's harder to give those spotlight moments, which are really important to make the characters like stand out and feel like they're contributing in a way that, you know, that's representing how their character wants to play or how they want to play their character or whatever. It's harder. Like, it would be weird if there was a party with like 2 wizards, right? I think you hear lots of good stories about like the all bard party or whatever, or the all warlock party. But I think that the players are bought in for a certain kind of thing, a certain kind of experience. And even then, it is like, I do think your unique subclass or the spells you take or whatever, like, you do want to stand out. I think part of role playing is like wanting to play a character that does, you know, you want to tell your character's story, and that needs to be different than everybody else's story, right?
Yeah, I think the standing out and like the buying in is really important. Like, especially for a long-term campaign. Like if it's just a one-shot or whatever, I think that's the best time to do really crazy stuff with like composition, background characters. Like that's my favorite. I love playing with those in one-shots. But if it's like a long term, it's you and your friends are like, we're going for the long haul on this one, and you all accidentally made similar characters, like that would be really crushing for me as a player to be like, oh, what? Like I had this cool idea, like I was gonna be this like fathomless warlock or whatever, and my friend is also a warlock with a similar vibe. Like that wouldn't be fun to do by accident, and that's where I think it kind of falls on the DM to one, make it known like this is kind of the idea for what we're going for, or like have it a talk between the players of like, this is a one shot, go crazy, or I specifically want you to all be criminals or whatever. Or if it's like a long term, like just make an adventure character. These are the ideas I've gotten like for class and race or whatever, so that you can choose whether or not it's something you want to like tag into if another player's cool with it. If it's like, oh, we already have a wizard, can I also be a wizard but of a different subclass?
Yeah.
That I think is normally fine. It's just the knowledge going in matters.
I feel
like
that. Go on.
Blades humbles you though if like we're two of the same thing, because you and I are like charismatic and like we've gotten our asses humbled.
Yeah, it is fun, and that's like why I ask when you guys. Sometimes it'll be one of you has failed at a thing, and then the other one's gonna try it, or one of you is helping another one. And so I try to ask a lot, like, what does it look like when, you know, your character Lorelai in Blades, what does it look like when she does this? And like, what does it look like when Graham, you know, your character has a history of being an actor and everything. So like the way he persuades somebody is different than the way that like Lorelai, the chemist might persuade someone. And so I ask that, right? And so like if you had a party of all wizards in D&D terms, it's like, what does your magic look like? What does it feel like? What does it sound like? You know, those ways to distinguish characters from one another. You know, if you're playing a low fantasy campaign or game where like magic is super rare, then it's about characters that like, okay, how do you overcome this obstacle? Everybody can get past a locked door one way or another, but how do you do it? Or what does your weapon look like? What kind of armor do you wear? Like that kind of thing. Like, whenever you're talking low fantasy, I think like the Conan stories come up a lot because like the wizards in that are almost always like evil dudes. So everybody is just like
magic corrupts some way in that world.
Yeah, you're either a big guy like Conan or you're like a nimble guy, and that's pretty much those are the types of people you can be. And so it's like the type of weapon that you fight with is what makes you stand out, right? That doesn't work as well in 5e because weapons don't have a lot of flavor to them, but you know that's one way you can go with a type of game.
This, in terms of building a character and playing it, I think that was a really great segue to the next DM question, which is, if you're going for a long-term campaign, which we currently are, how long did it take you to create your character?
I kind of want to hear Nick.
We want to hear Legati.
Legati.
I played a version of Legati in an Adventurers League game of D&D probably like 7 years ago or something like that. I only did Adventurers League like twice ever, but one time I did play. It's a very different.
Is it a good experience?
What's that?
Was it a good experience?
Oh yeah, it was fun. It was fun. There was like a couple people, it was like their first time ever playing D&D, and everybody was like really positive to them and everything. So it's, you know, it all depends on the community and the store you're at, but it was a good one. It's just it's not exactly what I want out of a role-playing game, but it was fun to do. That Legati was a warlock, because I think that like if you're doing it around the Salal, which it still was at the time, because I had probably read that story for around the first time back then, I think the warlock is like the immediate, tapping into this dark force or whatever. But like over the years thinking about it and revising it, it's like doesn't really make sense, because the Salal's not like, it doesn't want things, it wouldn't bargain in that way. And
it's more like a force, isn't it?
Yeah,
that it's I've ended up at more of like the crazed like quantum physicist understanding the nature of reality and being able to do things with it, but it's not like physics cares about you, right? And so from there, I mean, I'm not sure. The way I think of characters is like over the long term, and I'll make notes. I'll have a Google Doc that's like, oh, this would be a fun character concept, and maybe I would flesh them out. And then when we knew we were going to play, it would be like more and more going into that. It's like, okay, he's a wizard, but what kind of wizard? Okay, transmutation. That's obviously implied. Most of my characters that I would make would have some kind of concept or hook that drive a lot of the other stuff. Like I played Malsado before. It's like he's a creepy dude and there's a bag and the bag wants to eat stuff. And a lot of the rest of it just comes from that. But I need that inspirational hook first. And then the rest of it can go pretty quick.
Yeah. So it sounds like you've had it in the bag for a while. No pun intended.
Yeah.
How long did it, for Arrow, how long did it, because I think honestly you were like the newest person we asked to join, because we knew that the original crew was jumping in. We were throwing out the idea of getting a fourth player, which was you, Nick, and we were like, do you want to jump in? And I was personally amazed that you were like, yes, I want to do it. And then I think there was a discussion we had and we were like, I think we want to open it up for one more. And I know we did games with you, Titan. So it was quite amazing that we got both of you. I'm going to be very honest. But you brought out Arrow. So how long did it take to make this little seafaring person?
See, that's another, like, I'm kind of with Nick on that one, in the way that, like, over time, the idea changes, and I also start with a hook. So, like, with Arrow, my hook was, like, context. I have now played 2.5 different pirate-themed characters in the past couple of years, and I'm like, I'm hooked on the topic. I wrote, like, a 40-page thesis on piracy in my last year of college. I love it.
Weren't you also going to play as Jack in Mosted?
Maybe.
You were. Wait a minute. Yeah, you were going to play Jack. It was like either gold dragonborn or copper dragonborn, I think.
Something like that. I don't remember. But
I'm noticing a theme.
I think so. I love pirates. I think they're really cool. Like,
valid.
Historically are cool. Sailors are awesome. And so I was like, I wanted to get one last, like, oomph out of the concept of a pirate. Because I'm like, I have now taken a couple different routes. The first one was, what was he? A monk. I think he was just a monk, or he was like a rogue monk and then become a full monk. So I was going more with the idea of, like, wanting to sway away from that life because of what had happened at sea. The second one, she's all in. She's a monklock, and she's cracked out of her mind. Like, loves nothing more than the sea. Heart got stolen. She wants it back. That kind of thing. And then I was like, okay, I have these ideas of the pirate that wants to leave and the one that wants to stay more than anything. And I was like, what's a third concept that is different from those that I can focus on? And with Arrow, it was more of like the spooky side of things. So I wanted to focus on the spooky, and then I was like, and also maybe someone who's just like the act of sailing and piracy indifferent. It's a means to an end sort of thing. So I instead focused on a different aspect for him to try to focus on, and then more came with him the more I thought about him. At first I was like, like, I don't know, I think he's fine. I think he'll be like a fine character to play with. And I've noticed this happens a lot to me in campaigns. It's like, after the first session or two, I get locked in. Like, if I have a good enough character, then I'm like, okay, I can sink my teeth into what you're like, what your background is like, what you feel like, what your thoughts are, and now I'm like, I want to develop you more behind the scenes.
Yeah.
So, like, it took me, like, I don't know, a little while, maybe like a week or so, I don't remember, to, like, conceptualize him initially, but to actually, like, finish making him to a degree, probably until, like, a month ago. Whenever the last time I texted you about something, like...
It's so funny how, I feel like the campaign, any campaign I've ever ran, I've ran like 3 of them now. It doesn't feel like it doesn't feel like it gets any steam until maybe like after the first little hurdle or the first little adventure. For us, it was like on the ship and then in trial was like those two coincided. So it was like, that was like one big hurdle. And I was like, all right. Hopefully we're going to find some steam afterwards. And it kind of felt like we did after we hit Spooky Island. And I was like, oh, all right. Now we're getting some groove. Now we're going. Speaking of at least Vintier, I know a little bit the history for Phoenix, Amber, but I don't know if you actually put a lot of thought into her.
We made
initially.
her we made her in Books of Brew when we used to go through subclasses, and I was like, I really would love to flesh her out, but I had no reason to bring her out. So she was made like 2 years in advance. And then we hit Anburn in our last campaign. Like the moment we were done with that arc, I was like, she'd fit perfect there. Like she'd really fit perfect. And then that's how we kind of developed her backstory. But Vera was different. Vera was, I wanted to be that type of cleric like that. So it was like, how do I flush her out in this world? But that took me a shit of a long time because she had so many siblings and all these things. And I was like, I'm going to give you a novel because I spent a lot of time. So here you go.
Yeah, complexity of a character. Sometimes I'm like, I don't have time to read 3 pages. Oh my god.
Forever. And then we couldn't find like a hook for her to put her in. And then we did eventually. But yeah, no, Phoenix just like fit. Vera took some time.
Well, speaking of time, it took no time for D&D Beyond to backpedal. I'm great at segues, guys. I don't know if you noticed. By the time this is released, the D&D Beyond controversy, sort of the retraction of spells and magic items from the 2014 edition of D&D 5e has kind of found a nice little niche solution, which is good. Still, though,
which was just kidding.
I was pissed. I think
I had no idea about that until it was sent to the chat. Actually, that one went straight over my head, and I was like,
"Wait, it was pretty
what?"
quiet." Yeah.
I was just mad that they wanted you to like add everything back, and then it doesn't level, but then you're paying for it to do that. So I was just like.
Well, I mean, for spells and magic items, it's not that it won't level. It's just that they were like, oh, you could see the spells because you still bought it. We're not going to take that away from you. But if you want to put them in your character sheet, you have to add every single thing as a homebrew item, which was just so bad. And Nick, I know me and you, we feel very, sort of very strongly against like not against, but like towards Wizards of the Coast, where I'm like, please stop tripping.
Please stop putting your foot in your mouth.
Stop doing it.
Please, for 1 year. Can we go 1 year, guys?
We understand like 3 or 4 big corporations.
Yeah, it's because I started playing Magic in like 1995, and I started playing D&D in like 98. And so I followed them while they were 2 different companies.
Yeah. And
how crazy it was that like the Magic company bought the D&D company. So I've seen them do shit like over the years and like try different stuff. There's definitely been ups and downs, and like it has been like recently. And if you're plugged in, like Titan didn't know about this stuff. I think that's the majority, right? If you're on the Reddits and whatever, these things do get kind of like, it's not blown out of proportion, because those are also a lot of the most diehard fans of the game and people who care about the company one way or the other. But you have to keep it in perspective. Like, is this a big deal or not? And a lot of people just never play online, or they would never have noticed, which is like we talked a bit about. Is that like the plan? To sneak these new versions of it's. I don't think it was that devious, but yeah, it's. So many recent things have been like, hey, did you ask like 5 people who play the game regularly and use this thing regularly what they thought? And like, we know that they laid off a whole bunch of people, like, what was it, a year ago or something? And we know that a lot of those people were like closer to the community. And it has been hard to ignore that a lot of the stuff they have done recently has been more and more in that, like, the enshittification of everything, right? Everything is, they want to charge you more and give you less. That's like where the late stage capitalism we're in. And you don't want that. You don't want to feel that in your games and in your recreation. And like I was talking about earlier today, it's like I bought the books. I'll run the game online. I'm going to use Roll20 because I can do it for free. I'm not going to pay you extra for it. Don't you dare come into my game that I have set up and mess around with it. I got so mad when Blades on Roll20 was bugging out that I emailed the people at the company because it's we were ready to start and the formulas weren't working and it had been working. So it's it feels like somebody coming into your house and moving your notes around.
Don't touch my shit.
And that just sucks. Yeah. It's a lot of work to DM. Don't make it harder by doing this little, this stuff to it.
Oh, actually, since we're on the topic of D&D Beyond, though, with people who use it, I've encountered a problem with one of my players' character sheets for the game that we're playing. Just wiped. Gone, so far unrecoverable.
What?
That sucks.
Poof, a full-on error, and I'm sure there's nothing can be done at that point.
Yep.
Yeah,
so that was a fun one.
That's why for Blades, we've been taking screenshots every downtime of the character sheets because I'm paranoid about that happening. Because we don't have paper backups or anything, because it's much easier to make them in this case, in Roll20. But yeah, that sucks.
Yeah, and he had a bunch of stuff, because we're late game now, and he was kind of the hoarder character. So he had a bunch of stuff, had the most money in the party, so we had to go back.
Oh,
he had over 2,000 platinum plus several thousand gold. So it's we just have to guess now how much he had.
I mean, the great thing about at least the way how we're playing it is that we have a recorded history.
Yeah.
Not that I'm going to rewatch my entire series again, but it would be interesting to be oh, do you remember when you got it? Okay, we're gonna double check. Let's see if we could maybe scrub through it and find it.
Just ask me. I literally write down when we get hauls of shit.
That's true. We have good note takers.
That's what I've been trying to do now, even as a DM. I have a notebook and I will write down plus whatever much to player, because I'm losing it.
I've never. It's very rare that I see Nick angry, and how you were so angry about
when her sheets wouldn't work.
When her sheets were working, I was like, yep, yeah. No,
I don't like when something was working just fine and then it breaks for no reason, which is what that was. I think somebody was pushing an update for the character sheet, and because of the weird way that Roll20 works, somebody working on one version of it broke it for everyone who was using those sheets. That particularly bothered me. And it was also we were trying a new game and a new system for the first time. And I had tried to, got everybody on board with this and we're going to try it out. And when it's working in Roll20, it works really smoothly. And for that to break the day before we were supposed to start our campaign, this is just going to suck.
Before?
It's going to,
It's the hour before.
It was the day before, and then it was the day of. It was still acting up a little bit. But when we actually played, it was working. But it was part of it was me raising a stink on Reddit and emailing the company and everything else.
That hour it worked. When we were all right, we're beginning. It's working. Oh,
Nick
good.
yelled at somebody at work now.
Yeah, that's sometimes you gotta do that, I guess. But you don't want to. It doesn't feel good. But
the original issue that they were having was obviously D&D 5e is going into their 2024 edition. Big updates that honestly I am aware of it. I have not kept up with it. I don't know a lot about the new core rules. I don't know about the new updates and lore details. There are a few things that I absolutely agree with. I think they made healing spells way better now. I know they made the bard much more manageable and usable. I think they have counter song or counter charm or something like that as sort of a natural ability that originally with the way it was written is you have to spend an action and keep spending an action to void out any charm effects. But that's when do you know you're being charmed? And so their solution to that was making it a reaction. I was like, okay, great. They're making a lot of good improvements. But
I feel like they nerfed a lot of shit.
Didn't they just made a 2014 new update with the Big B's Giants?
Yeah, because they turned everything to Legacy. All the older stuff before it. They did an update with the races and stuff at least.
And then they had the book of everything, or the deck of everything, or another core rule book that came out. I'm like, this is very, and to Nick's point, like this is very much of like, let's test the waters. Let's see how much we can piss people off by selling them as much as we can. They did that with one D&D. And then they did that with like this licensing thing where if you make content around D&D, you don't technically own it. And they were like, okay, never mind. Everyone's mad. Let's take a step back.
Nobody liked that.
Nobody liked it. Yeah, nobody liked that. And then with D&D, nobody liked it. And then they went into now with removing the old spells and old magic items. Nobody liked that. But no, by the time we're doing this recording and by the time this comes out, it's going to be old news. But
there'll be a new thing.
They stepped back. They just stepped back.
There'll be a new thing we don't like.
Yeah, you can place some money on there being something else that it's like, man, you probably should have just asked like 5 people who actually play the game and use this tool if they wanted it.
Since this is coming out in a month, do you guys want to guess?
Yeah, we're gonna bet.
Can we put some bets on what the future holds?
I'm gonna put 9:30.
God.
I mean, I shared the thing today. It's going to be something about this Baldur's Gate tabletop thing. Because it looks like Baldur's Gate, it feels like Baldur's Gate, but it's actually just a really flashy, like Roll20. It's a flashy virtual tabletop. I think when it comes out, how much money it's going to cost to play that and who has to pay and everything, I think that's going to upset people. I think it's not going to run well because they're not a video game company. It's not made by Larian. It's, they're taking a bunch of their code or whatever. There's going to be poor support for it, like all the technical difficulties. Like Roll20 has enough issues with it. And you see how ambitious this full 3D thing is. Like it's going to run like crap on people's laptops or whatever. So that like it's going to be the system requirements come out and they're really bad, or the cost comes out and makes everybody mad.
Yeah, I feel like that's going to be one where people, DMs especially, are going to get really excited by the prospect of it, and then either, it won't work on their computers, or it won't function the way that they want it to function. Like, I imagine it won't end up being as intuitive as they show it to be, so it'll be, like, really complicated. Half of it will work. DMs are going to get really mad and be like, wow, I just wasted a whole bunch of money that I can't get back. And I still can't play this with my friends like I thought.
Do you have a theory, Amber, a premonition?
Making me have PTSD for when we played Thomeg. I mean, I agree with you. It looks like Tailspire. It looks like Tailspire with like a Baldur's Gate skin. I don't know if you guys know what Tailspire is, but it looks very much the same. But like Tailspire tested theirs for like months on end and then like threw it out for a few people to do it live and test. And I feel like they're just gonna throw this in and be like, here you go. It works, without actually properly testing it. So I give it maybe like 3 months and then they have to go back to the drawing board with it.
I have a direct premonition. I have a guess of what's going to happen in the next month. It might. I don't know much about Sigil. I think that's the code name for the virtual tabletop. I haven't looked into it too deeply, and I might be pulling right out of my ass. So who knows if this is false or not? But I think it's going to get leaked. This is my guess. It's going to get leaked that there is either a pre-order bundle that comes with it, that it's going to be released like a game where you have to pay for the system and there's a subscription, and there are tiers. That is my guess. The other one is it's completely free. It has its own subscription service, and it does not coincide with D&D Beyond's already set subscription service. So it's not like you share the content. You'd have to buy the content all over again and use it.
That's a good one.
I think those are the two.
It's dark, but I so see it.
State today's date so that people will know that you recorded this before this inevitably happens.
It's August 30th, everyone.
Okay. Yeah, I shared the drill tweet in the chat, but it's the so you get mad at Jared Fogle just because he has different beliefs, and then girls get mad at me. Oh, sorry. I'm trying to remove it. I didn't mean to do it. There's a drill tweet for everything, and this is the one. Like, why do you keep doing stuff and then people get mad at you and then you change the stuff? Just think about it first. Do a focus group first, and then don't do that. But yeah, I mean, we've heard, unfortunately, the higher ups at Hasbro and people who are calling the shots, like they see how much the highly successful video games make that can have subscription models and DLC and everything else.
Yeah.
And they're like, damn, it sucks that we just sell the books once and then that's it.
Yeah.
And so like so many of their moves are like transparently like, man, we want to get people on some kind of subscription model. And if that sucks and people hate that shit, but that is what they want to do. And yeah, it's so far it has been refreshing how often the community's been able to make them stop just by getting really pissed at them. They don't stick to their guns at all. So.
I don't know your entire corporate or career history, Titan, but at least speaking from the three here, we know the smell.
Like.
We won't name any names, but we know the smell. We know that we could see it. Sort of the corporate bullshit. It's so apparent. We got trained in this dark hole, and we know exactly what it looks like.
Test things. What? Opinions? What are those?
Yeah, Ed Zitron is a tech PR guy, and he has a good podcast now called Better Offline, where just every week it's like, hey, this AI shit sucks and nobody wants it, and here's all the way they're forcing it in, or this is why Google is so bad these days. And so N-shitification is the phrase that's been around for longer about like why everything is getting worse and costing more money. Ed Zitron uses the rot economy. And that's the idea that like companies, we're at a stage where most of these companies have reached a certain size and now there's not anything new or better. And it's just about the products are rotting and no longer getting better. It's just about how can we get more money out of people. And you know, there's good stuff in the new version of D&D. I'm not against there being new versions of D&D. But hell, you could have done it in a better,
it could have just been called
way.
Like they did 3.5. They could have just called this 5.5 and it would have been acceptable.
Yeah, I think people would have been upset no matter what they did. I don't think the issue is making a new version. I think they needed to do it eventually, you know, even if it's just for financial reasons, right? Like, it is an old edition. You do need to put out a new edition every once in a while. I get that. But all the online chicanery is very annoying.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest one. Like, even if, like, I've looked into some of the new stuff they're adding in the new version, and like, a lot of it, I'm like, no. But there are some of it where I'm like, okay, they actually had a decent idea, or they were trying to upgrade the idea that they already had. I see the vision. So even just like neglecting the content itself, a lot of the moves they've been making, not to be sinister about it, but it feels very like, if we just like let this slip, who will notice? And it feels like a constant game of like the internet catching things. And it's like, well, I'm glad they're being caught, but imagine when they're not. You know?
Yeah, they're trying to get away with stuff all the time.
Yeah, and I'm like, I knew about the laying people off thing. I knew about the like royalties and like things like that they were going up against, like, what was it, a year or two ago. But this one completely slipped past me. I was like, I saw the post of them saying, we're not doing that. And I was like, oh, I would hope not. That would be terrible. Like, that's my primary way of playing the game right now. That would suck.
Yeah, and they, like, people said it around the licensing thing when the OSR or whatever issues, that this is a community of like nerds that reads the fine print really closely and looks for exploits and looks for the weaknesses in things. And that's unfortunately, like, for them, those are the people that it is the hardest to like sneak something by, even more than like video gamers. Video gamers, like, it's more of a consumer hobby, right? You buy the thing, you buy the DLC, you buy the new thing or whatever. But like, so much of D&D is, you pay attention to the details, you make it your own. People have this sense of ownership over it. They're going to be offended, and then they're going to be like, wait a minute, and like look really closely at what you're trying to pull. and they're gonna catch you every time, which is good. It's good. They need to be caught, clearly.
Yeah.
That makes sense, though. I mean, like, if you know anything about that game, it's like you read the fine print and all the fucking rules. So it's like, why wouldn't you read?
Yeah.
It's a game where everyone is trying to min-max and trying to screw with the DM by reading a little bit of nuance and details and all the rules. Are you telling me that you didn't know that a nerd is going to go through the system and go, well,
fuck is this?
now what can I do here? Wait a minute. So I fully, that's 100% true. But yeah, like to Titan's point, there are some things in the new the 2024 version that are quite interesting. Although some of them felt like homebrew rules that we enacted anyways, like bonus action for a potion, not an action. Yeah. Speaking of homebrew, though, see, mastered segues. I think it's time to do a bit of story. A little story time for you all, and get next to the campfire, get some marshmallows on sticks, and tell some scary, spooky D&D horror stories. I have one today. So I'll read it, I'll pause at certain points, and we can either guess what's going to happen, or we can give some commentary, so we'll see how it goes. It's labeled, DM gets mad at me for using a homebrew rule. I, 30s female, recently joined an online D&D group, and DM and 3 others are all in our 30s and 40s. So I felt extremely happy because I expected my fellow mid-30-year-olds to be more level-headed and mature. And for everyone but the DM, this was the case. Nothing controversy just yet, but we'll see. I joined as a new player in a group that already had 2 sessions in, and according to the players, 5 people combined have already left the group in 2 sessions.
That's a lot. That's in 2 sessions, 5. So it's like 3 and then 2.
Are you doing that's the math we're doing today?
Yeah, like, well, I can't split a dude in half, so like, that's...
What if they left
I half left one day, half left the other.
Yeah. First red flag. I honestly, if I came across that, if I heard that from other players, like, oh yeah, 5 people already left.
Yeah,
I'm like, how many sessions are you in? 2?
Oh shit, I gotta go.
Why?
Oh, my schedule just filled up like crazy all of a sudden. I gotta go.
In my 1.5 sessions. Oh, see, it's a possibility that you can technically leave halfway through.
You get an award if you sit through the most sessions. That's why the other ones are still there.
In my 1.5 sessions, our DM would constantly keep changing rules, post them in the announcements channels. The specific rule at the time was that wizards wouldn't be learning spells by leveling up anymore. We were 3rd level at this point. So, yeah, when you level up as a wizard, you get 2 new spells. So I guess that's not the case. You still get the spell slots, but I guess it sounds like
find a spell or like be taught it, I guess.
Yeah, that's the only way wizards get new spells.
Yeah. That's a grittier way to do it if everyone's cool with that, but I imagine the singular, maybe 2 wizard players would not be cool with that.
No way, Legati. You don't get to the Salal doesn't care. It's uncaring like physics.
Yeah, because then I was like, if you don't find it, then you have to buy it. So you literally have to pay for each of your fucking spells. And that would suck.
I think a lot of bad decisions of these kinds, especially around like magic, is some dude, and I'm gonna say dude because it's always
it always is.
Say it, but
some dude is like, oh, this is more realistic. And like you're talking about like magic and learning spells and shit, which just doesn't make any sense. But it's like it just feels more realistic. Maybe a long time ago, a wizard like pissed him off in a game or something. Or like guys who get obsessed with the martial caster disparity and the fact that like wizards are the most powerful as you get later in the game, and they try to fix it. Like maybe this is an attempt to do that, but it's just really misguided.
Which is funny because yes, wizards get very powerful late game. But right now, Legati's been staying back as much as he can. And even still, there's been very close calls.
That's the deal. Yeah, that's, that's
the trade-off.
Yeah, you become the glass cannon. You are squishy. You cannot take many hits, but you hit very hard when you do.
Eventually, I can turn myself into an ape, and then it's okay.
I messaged him and mentioned that it would probably be a better idea to talk this through the party, with the party tomorrow. Maybe they have similar questions, and generally be a good idea to communicate with the party first before coming up with changes. Okay, so it sounds like
Sounds like it's on the
the
whip.
change happened like in the middle of the night. You woke up
Yeah.
as a player and you're like, "What? Wait, this is a rule now." I don't feel like that's a big ask. It's like, hey, can we just talk about this real quick?
Yeah.
I've seen that. What people say is like everything on the D&D or RPG horror stories subreddit. The answer is you guys should just talk like adults to one another, and that would like solve every single problem that's on there. I get the feeling that the DM, because this is on the horror stories thing, and he did try to talk to him, the DM probably didn't take it well or wasn't open to
Yeah.
feedback.
I feel like they took that offensive. You should talk about it first.
I think
No, I am the DM. I am God. This is what is happening.
I think where the level you guys have it at, or like how stubborn this person is, I think it's too low. We're gonna get to that in a second.
Oh
Yeah.
shit.
So again,
Okay.
let's communicate with the party with the changes. He says it's not needed. He is a great DM and he knows what he's doing. Second red flag. Is this like in the first session this person's played? So we don't know. I asked, well, how would we learn new spells? As dungeon, it's actually written as dungeon loot and in shops. Oh, I guess that makes sense technically.
That's what
Yeah,
we
that'd be
said.
scrolls
Find it or
whatever.
buy it.
Yeah.
Well, in that case, hopefully it would be it wouldn't be used once, as we had 3 wizards in the party. While more common ones like magic missile could be found everywhere.
Even though we just talked about this, Nick, it's
We
fine.
were just
Three
talking about
wizards?
yeah, I had the same thought.
3 wizards, and he's making this change to.
Oh yeah, 3
Without
wizards.
talking to any of the 3 wizards.
Why do I have? And
Well,
this is gonna sound sexist,
Party
but
5
why
with
do
3
I
wizards.
feel like the 3 wizards are 3 women and this guy's a dude? Just so.
You ladies and your spells.
Yeah. You witches.
Bunch of witches. Bad black magic. So hopefully, I guess the hope here is, all right, if that's the case, are these scrolls just everywhere, like the common ones? And the more obscure spells like Gift of Alacrity or Catnap, those will be like you have to go through a dungeon or buy it at an expensive price to find. And so the question that they ended with was, would that be the case? Would we be able to get those as well? Apparently, I did something incredibly bad with this. He went on a long rant about players just can't keep doing whatever they want, and how D&D is not a toy, it's a game. Okay. How do I know how I don't know anything about pacing and story, as well as how I don't know anything about pacing or story writing? And Matt Mercer calls rules all the time. This was not the type of reaction I was expecting to a simple question.
Matt Mercer would not be happy about his name being dropped like that.
Yeah.
Certain.
Yeah. It's not a toy, it's a game.
That's
Yeah, that's why I was like, but,
What the fuck are you talking about?
but.
I mean, I'm starting to get. I don't know. I don't know if like most stuff that people say on Reddit ever actually happened. I don't know if this is real.
That's fair.
I like it's feeling weird, right? You always like, what was the other side of the story or whatever? Did this really happen? I'm gonna take devil's advocate position and say I think. First off, okay, before I do that, this is
You're gonna- one of
bullshit
those
because it's
protective
just
ways be like,
it's
wait.
just gonna mean that all the 3 wizards just learn all the same spells. They're all gonna copy off of each other.
Didn't we
Right.
just finish talking about being unique?
Yeah. It's going to be 3 identical wizards. It sounds like maybe what he like. There's certain spells he doesn't like, and so he's trying to restrict access to certain spells. In which case, you should just not allow those spells in your campaign or something. Because if he has control over what scrolls appear and what's in shops, he's doing that effectively.
Yeah.
But I'm going to say that there is a version of a game that could be cool where wizards only learn random spells or have to draft spells, like in Magic when you do a draft or something. I think Knave is an indie RPG where when you have spells, like you roll on a D100 table, and that's the spell you know, and that's like the one you have, and you have to make it useful. And I think there's a lot of spells in D&D that never get used, that if, like, let's say randomly, whenever you leveled up, you had 3 spells, and you had to pick one of them. It was randomly determined from all available spells. That would be cool, because you'd pick lesser known spells and learn all the ins and outs of them and make them work. That's not what's going on in this situation at all, if this situation is real, but it kind of makes me want to play a campaign like that.
Well,
this has inspired me to play a different game.
Nick, this is indeed real. This person Reddit this poster did come with receipts.
Okay.
There are screenshots. But this did happen, but I also agree. It's so hard to find stories that are actually real, that seem real.
Mike,
Some of these things
we've had a DM change rules mid-game. I won't call out which DM, but we've had that. And me going, oh shit, I wrote this down wrong because he changed his mind.
I want to ask who, but I don't want to ask who, so I'll stay quiet. So it continues by saying, I said it's really better to communicate if we want to change the mechanics, the core mechanics of a class, especially if you have 3 of that class in your group, in a party first. His response, quote unquote, and this, I actually looked at the screenshots too, so this is real. Look, do you know what it's like to be in the middle of a war zone? I have to look back at the VOD to see everyone's reaction. I was not expecting this. I asked him, what does that have to do with this? His response was a mix of, what's wrong with you? To, lol, there's something wrong with you IRL. To, you're being a bit catty, aren't you? Winky emoji. To, I'm being targeted. You're crossing my boundary. I know you want to cross my boundary. I'm giving you permission. It's all over the board. We're all over the place.
I'm going back to, I think Amber's right about the wizards being women now. I
was like,
really extremely weird vibes.
Somebody that tells me, have you ever been in a war zone? It doesn't seem like a person that would know what a boundary is and then give me permission to then cross said boundary. So I was just like, ooh, big cringe.
I play a lot of random one-shots on Start Playing. And I remember one of the DM, there was one DM that I played with who, on their page, on their bio, put down that they were a veteran. And that, I was like, oh, that's good. It didn't really sway, like, my decision whether or not to join or to join. I was just like, hey, it fits my time, fits my price, there's enough players, I want to join. And he was, like, the nicest guy. And it was weird, like, the toxic player who was within the group was like, dude, I just want to give you a virtual salute for, being, helping this country and the whole thing. And even the DM was like, sure, dude.
Nick, your face.
What are you playing as?
Generally, it's the weird people. So, like, background for me, I come from a military household. So, like, that kind of stuff, yeah, it's the people who make it that level of extra weird, or like, have you ever been in a war zone? It's like, dog, chill. Like, seriously, no one cares. Like, if you've actually served, thank you for your service. I like it. It's fine. It's cool. I like being in America most of the time. Like, you get it. But, like, especially when you're playing D&D, if that's not relevant,
unnecessary flex.
Yeah.
Unnecessary flex, and then, like, a lot of the time, it doesn't, like, the Warzone comment from the horror story, it's not a flex anymore. You just look like an a-hole.
Yeah.
You're not proving anything. No one's going to look better upon you while you're having a tantrum if you throw out that you also served. Like, no one cares.
I fought wizards.
I'm unclear. Was that an answer to, like, why there's a rule change? Is it like the wizards are too stressed out because they're in a... I don't see how that's a response to the objection about the rules. But and then the DM said like 4 other things that are like just like a pinball bouncing around in the brain. Just
I have
random
another
things to say.
follow up to the other what, 3 people that left in 5 people that left in 2 sessions, whatever number that was. Were they
Yeah.
all also women that just were like, I'm out? Because
I mean, I would leave this game. I would absolutely. This guy is not good at this. He's not.
Yeah, evidently.
All the 5 characters who left my game in the last 2 sessions were all wizards.
I'm just curious of like the ones that
I want all
They had
to
8
leave.
wizards.
8
Just trying to
wizards.
cycle through them.
yeah.
It's like, all right, great. We have 2 new players for session 1. What are you guys gonna play as? We're all gonna play wizards. I want you out of this fucking game.
Yeah, maybe
I'm
they
with
all.
you.
It
I
was
think
8
this is
wizards
like
and they
a-
drove him insane. And that's why he's like this now.
Session
That's what I
2.
was gonna say. But I think you're right. I think he got spited by a cave somewhere by a wizard. He's just like, all right, they all gotta go.
Boy, you guys are all being catty. Winky face.
Yeah. What the
Yeah,
fuck?
Caddy is.
No.
That,
no.
Yeah, that feels gendered to me.
Yeah.
It's in the winking.
Yeah.
Why? Unnecessary.
In my response, I put, in my 20 years of DMing and playing, I have never met a DM who treated his players like his personal fools like you are. You disrespected your players, you call your players names, and you treat everyone as a joke, and you call us names for asking about mechanics. That is the most tempered and the most controlled response to all those messages. I wouldn't do
Yeah.
that.
No.
I think honestly, like, it would depend. If it was a stranger, like the response you might get out of me would just be, "Bro, what are you on about?
Dude, the fuck?
Yapping? What?"
Oh man, no, but that was like the most responsible. Like, you didn't have to give a response like that. That was very.
Yeah, you could have dipped at that point.
That was thoughtful. That's a losing battle with this person, but it was thoughtful.
That's too much energy for me. I was like, no.
Amber, knowing you
Depends how much I.
I
hate
think you would pause, walk away from your desk, and be like, "Look at the fuck this
Yeah,
shit
I was
is.
like,
What the
give me
hell?"
a second. I don't look good in orange. Let's take a breather.
The thing is, and it continues, it says, thing is, I would be completely fine with whatever buffs or nerfs he came up with. And then this weird conversation happened. Simply because I wanted to know exactly it's almost like Nick right now. It's like, I would have been fine with it if, like,
You
there's
would
some
explain
structure
to
around
me.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A reason.
I mean, can I just switch to a sorcerer and basically do the exact same stuff, and now I can learn? That would be my follow up too.
Play the system.
That means you
Yeah.
take 1 level in Wizards, so you have your book, and you're like, if I ever come across a new spell, just write it down. And now I'm 2 spells or 2 levels into
Yeah.
Sorcerer.
But there's like
you'd
rules
actually
that come up
break
like
it
that.
then.
Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
what was the rule that we had for Thomag, Nick, for like when we started getting into crazy levels for health potions? Like when we had them on our belt or whatever?
Oh, natural
Oh
ones.
yeah, if you wanted to be able to use it like as a for free, basically you had to wear it on your belt, and then if you got a critical hit against you or a critical fumble, we would roll a dice and maybe one of them would get broken because you were wearing them on
which did
handy on
happen.
your belt.
That happened a few times. Yeah.
It happened a few times. Yeah, it's not the most elegant way to do it, but it's also like
It did have a
there's
trade
gotta be
off
some-
though.
yeah. And then it's like sometimes people wanted other potions and
Mm-hmm.
wanted to be able to take them instantly. And it's like, well, it doesn't make sense if you could only do it with a healing potion. So, okay. But if you wear your super valuable potion on like your hip, there's,
That's on
stuff
you.
could go wrong.
If I hit you really hard.
It's tweaking with the rules. It probably is not necessary, but
That's like I think a good balance though between like what your players want and what is like acceptable for like gameplay mechanics.
yeah.
Like I think those are the like, and you can talk with your players
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah, no, Nick didn't just throw it at us. He was like, so I want to do this thing.
So I break your potion. What?
Like, I think I talked to you guys about it where I was like, for Ventir, I was like, we're going to keep with the 2014 thing. And by the time we hit level of 10, then we can have a conversation if we want to jump into, 2024. It's all about setting expectations beforehand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's almost done. So essentially the last bit of it that we kind of stopped was like, communication has to happen. The other players in that group were absolutely fantastic. Amazing combat, amazing role play, and great synergy, especially when you're all wizards. And party dynamic. I really wish I could have kept playing with you guys. You could technically still do that. Just find a DM. And they did include a lot of screenshots, like Discord messages. I think what's really funny, I'm going to go through a few of the comments, because some of these also kind of repeat a bit of what we've been talking about. Quote unquote, according to the players, 5 players combined already left the group in 2 sessions. And they put red flag. That's the whole USSR May 9th Victory Day parade. It's not a red flag. And then invoking Matt Mercer for any reason should be considered a red flag. Yeah.
That's what I mean. Like, he would not want this. Talk to your players. He seems like a lovely person. I don't know him.
Any DM that goes, oh, it's what Matt Mercer or, Brendan Lee Mulligan or Abri Iyengar or any of the other fantastic, public DMs that are popular. Anytime I hear like, oh, I'm trying to be like that, I'm like, don't be like them, be like you.
Yeah, well, and like, I think even if someone really likes that play style and want to aspire to be like that as a DM, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think it's the relying on that to excuse behavior or decision making. That's where I start getting mad, because it's like, oh, well, Matt Mercer did it, therefore it's fine. It's like, okay, but look at the context, look who he's playing with, the matter that he's doing this like publicly, and also the context of the moment in which he made that decision. Now, put it in your context. Are you talking with your players? Does it make sense? Like, don't just be like, oh, this famous person did it, so it's fine.
I think, though, most of anybody that you mentioned, though, Mike, puts a heavy emphasis on how much they work behind the scenes with their players.
Yes.
Oh, exactly.
And like the level that they're comfortable with, like trying new things. Like if somebody isn't, then they don't push it. If somebody is, and they're like, yeah, kill them, I don't care. They're like, okay, now I know what you're comfortable with. They're not just throwing it out there because they're using their namesake.
There's, I think, 2 things we can end today's, and sort of the thought is it's what Matt Mercer would do, or any of that, is the same mentality of it's what my character would do, just to excuse you being an asshole. It's like the DM equivalent of that.
Yeah.
And to everyone's points here is, I mean, we ingest a lot of D&D content, me and Amber, off screen, so we know a lot of like interviews and background for all these famous DMs. They've mentioned it numerous times in different points that they give like binders of information and backstory and have multiple meetings. So yeah, maybe I should retract a little bit of what I said is, for this DM who's trying to be like Matt Mercer, maybe continue doing so, because you being yourself may be the worst option.
Be more like him. Try harder.
Try harder.
Just what you think he is.
Or maybe I'm just being a weird person, or we're just talking above table. But thank you so much for joining us, everyone. I'm about to have a coughing fit in a second. I can feel a tickle in my throat. See you guys next time.